It can be changed anytime actually. We are used to saying, seeing our annual budget and then we have a finance bill, but technically speaking, Parliament can change anytime the legislation. And we will see a greater exercising of rights, taxpayers, standing up for your rights. That's obviously going to happen, and it's a good thing as well. How you stand up for your rights is a different story, right? But at least you exercise your rights, right? Because more people are now realizing things and noticing it. Okay, now I'm running out of time. Let me just cover this. Tax practitioners. What's the current state? Sorry. Generally, I'm talking about general. I'm not covering the bigger firms because that's a different ball game. Compliance services and generally simple advisory services. What a number of smaller firms do, right? What we think the desired state is that you want to do compliance. Actually, I really do not know whether you would like to do compliance work. Yeah, you've got to seriously think about this. Compliance carries huge risks, all right? But if you can do it well and the clients appreciate it, willing to pay good fees, fine. But the good fees part is the one which is tricky. Advisory, you want to do all aspects. You also need to move into indirect taxes as well. I think practitioners should also look at that. We need to do in fact training of your own clients may be a possibility. And then other related services, whether it's licensing and various other things. Some firms do it, some firms don't. And the idea of all this is so that you become a preferred advisor because, you know, forget about audit work, forget about insolvency work. There are two different things. There are licensing issues. You're looking only at, let's say, tax. It's a lot more you can do, right? And the idea is then difficult to say, I do one part of tax, I don't do another part of tax services, all right? But it doesn't mean you have to do it yourself. You could work in collaboration. I mean, it doesn't mean that every one of you suddenly have a firm of 50 people, 60 people. There are not enough people anyway. The next problem is attracting good staff. Now, some of the key trends over the past few years, which I also presented a couple of years ago at the National Tax Conference, is technology-wise. We all know this, internet. Knowledge management is important. We have a lot of knowledge that could be sitting in terms of documents that you have, downloaded stuff and all that. Who is consolidating this and saving this and storing this properly in your organization so that you can retrieve it, all right? Very important. Automation of data handling. Again, as small practices, sometimes we can't invest too much, but you need to think seriously about efficiency. Can you automate the kind of data that you have? Changes in the work environment as well. Technology has created that, and I'll cover that later in terms of some of the issues. And investment in technology nowadays looks crucial. You can't do without some element of technology, all right? And if you get larger, you may need some in-house IT guys who can handle some of the IT problems and troubleshoot that for you. Alternatively, outsource it, that's still fine. So investment in technology, obviously, in the long term can reduce your cost in particular, of doing low margin work. Low margin, compliance work is low margin work. But you need to invest in order to do it better. When you look at mobility of staff, the trend is a number of staff are preferring to work from home where possible. This is not all the staff. This is usually more senior staff. I allow that in my firm. The senior staff working from home where they need to. Not every day, sometimes. That's fine. But it's difficult to allow it for junior staff unless you have the confidence. But it's something that will come and you have to look at it. So working remotely to the office. This also will be a challenge to our traditional firm that all of us have. The traditional leadership, chain of command, and you must be reporting to junior staff and senior and supervisor and all this stuff. And if you don't see the guys around, you don't know what to do. So the issue is how do you manage this? But it is a trend, and you need to deal with that as well. Now, overall, we find that practitioners will be looking at getting new competencies. One interesting area doesn't mean that you need to all acquire this competency. The demand at the moment now is transfer pricing, for example, for those multinationals or even companies with related party transactions. Transfer pricing work. How do we do that? Capacity building, training your people. This is an area that I think a number of practices have actually paid very little attention. It's just sending you for courses on a need-to basis, not on a basis of getting you more well-versed. It's just that I have to, then I'll send you. Otherwise, I don't. If I don't have to, then I don't need to. But it's all to do with the fact that you need staff to do work. So you need to balance this, because capacity building is crucial for the future. Knowledge management, I've mentioned. Attracting and retaining good employees is the single most important issue for all of us who are practitioners. I think the same thing goes for corporations. Yeah. Succession planning for tax for firms is obviously very important. Leveraging on technology, needless to say, it's important to look at this. Databases and so on and so forth. And I also think that if you're looking at yourself as being a tax practitioner itself, then you need to look at how do you clear any audit-based conflicts, which nowadays there could be. There's a number of organizations are looking at auditors and tax advisors may need to be separate in some cases. Some cases they accept it, some cases they don't. I think it's a trend that is slowly going to emerge as well. But there are exceptions, right? It's up to the board of the entity what they feel comfortable with. And within ASEAN, there's further integration, the ASEAN Free Trade Area, and there's opportunities for indirect tax work as well. Okay. Now, enhancing services, like I said, how do you enhance it? Nothing short, you have to have technical expertise. Acquiring that is one of the challenges. You need to invest time and effort. You need to upgrade your knowledge. And you need profiling and visibility, which is something that the next speaker after the break will be focusing on. This issue of marketing, something some of us may not be too keen on, but I think is important. Establishing a niche for yourself where possible. Utilizing technology, right? Collaborative efforts. So, like I said, you have so many firms. Actually, the answer to all this is mergers and acquisitions. I prefer the word mergers. And how then you have a bigger practice with a more diverse expertise. That's the answer. But you, again, can still do it by having collaborations. Yeah? What services? Income tax, transfer pricing, incentives, of course stamp duty in some cases, indirect tax, approval of applications. You do health checks, preparing for audits and so on and so forth. Are some of the things. And of course, some of us can also run training courses where possible. This is just some of the services that one can expand it, right? And etc. It's all up to your imagination, all right? What else I can do? Now, obviously, because the self-assessment environment has created this issue. I mean, we've been self-assessment in 1984. It's been such a long time. But do we know, I mean, its opportunity was there to build our expertise and actually offer more services to some of our corporate clients who are sitting here as well. Greater challenges, obviously. And value-added services are now in demand. You see, people like to see value. What do you provide? And it need to be, and this is something to do with marketing in terms of how you put the value across. GST around the corner, so the opportunity is there. Don't ask me how far away from the corner it is. I think the answer everybody knows is that we are waiting for the general elections. And we think it's 2013 will be enforced. Opportunities and challenges, okay, last few, I think. Management structure for firms. consolidation may be needed, establishing networking arrangements, how firms can further leverage themselves in the context of the challenging landscape that we are talking about. Networking arrangements with specialist firms, with others who can provide the service, but this one needs you to manage this very well, right? How do you work out and so on? Because sometimes clients only want to see one particular service provider, so that's the trouble. But I think it's all about your relationship with clients, how you can convince them. Opportunity challenge, again, staff issues, right? Staff issues, just summarizing all this, is knowledge. The Gen Y people, I think majority, maybe I shouldn't say majority here are shall I say Gen X? Yeah. A fair amount are Gen Y. And nowadays we hear of Gen Z already, and I'm wondering what that is. Because the Gen Y, it's like, we all have experiences of this, staff on our firms. It's like, we all talk about no pay leave, unpaid leave, which is, it's in most cases unheard of, but nowadays it's like it's a right. I'm entitled to it. And you get requests for no pay leave when they actually got vacation leave still outstanding. So it's like, how does that work? Finish off your vacation leave, then you think about it. Interesting. Then you got people who sit down, who work in various firms that I heard about, sit down and then tell to a director, actually I don't have the passion in tax. And so you wonder, what are you sitting here for? Maybe looking for another job? I don't know. But they do the work pretty well. But they actually dare tell you that I don't have the passion in tax. So what do? You start recruiting another person. Flexibility with staff. Single most important issue nowadays, that you need to be flexible. And I think that's a reality. But it's a matter of trust. Right? And I think if both parties have trust, I think it works. Reward system. I think the Prime Minister has said we have to move to a high-income nation, so we have to pay more. That seems to be a surefire way of moving ourselves. But it simply means, it's a challenging thing. I think it's true that salary structures are low, relatively, right? But it has to do with us improving our turnover as well, and improving our bottom line. We can pay more, but then we make losses. How do we then survive? Things like that. But you need to manage it. I think in the end of the day, the reward system is crucial. And mobility, working remotely and so on and so forth. In terms of business processes, again, your infrastructure for your own office setup, procedures has to be looked at, because a number of us don't have very good backroom support. Marketing, and that's again for the next session as well. I think traditionally practitioners, have been held back by professional ethics, guidelines, so you can't really advertise and all that, but there are flexibilities. And how do you promote yourself? Controls, checks and balances, timeliness, delivery of service. Needless to say, this is essential. And perhaps specialization within certain practices and certain things they do well. Right? Technology, I think, is very clear. Automation. So, e-filing is going to be pushed in a big way, and in the end of the day, we will not have the option to file paper returns within the next 5 years or so. So something we all need to bear in mind, including tax agents filing, the tax agents filing module or something, the electronic filing aspects can be done. So something to look at, again, invest. Now, the clientele, this is for those of us, correct me if I'm wrong, some of our corporate representatives are here as well, and they are the clientele for some of us who are practitioners. Very demanding people, isn't it? Yes. High expectations, which is reasonable, I think. It's fine. Then some organizations, the clientele has conflicts. Some of them, not all of them. Generally, it's not a trend in Malaysia yet. Audit and consulting can or cannot, and do they use a different advisor and so on and so forth. Or audit is one big four firm and consulting is another big four firm. So it could be a big four firm doing audit, it could be a small firm doing tax as well. Up to that. Sophisticated and focused, yeah? Because I think the trend has been that a lot of the corporations are recruiting their own tax people, yeah? Which is, I think, another trend that we all need to be aware of. This is going to be increasingly going to be common, and you will then the practitioners will then deal with this, with their corporate counterparts in the organization, which I think is a good thing, because companies need to also be very comfortable that whatever is being provided by a service provider is acceptable. And the only person who can vet that is someone who's got the tax experience. So I think it's a trend. Obviously, value for money is important. Marketing our services within our ethical rules. And for corporations, just a couple of slides on terms of, they face a lot of things. They face legislation on one side, changes in the law. External factors on reporting. Every time there's some upgrade, especially with an MNC. And then you have media nowadays, not here, but in other countries, the media writes a lot on tax schemes and IOFCs and tax havens, sometimes wrong things, but puts the company in the limelight for the wrong reason. So it's challenging. Tax authorities, more and more requirements and risk assessments. And then the organization itself has expansion, has got sometimes global, and then they have cost reduction, cash flow focus. All this are issues that they have to deal with. And if you're looking at corporations, they have to do more work. I think you're right, you're doing more work now with generally the same resources. Yeah? So the challenge is that in this age of more information being requested by authorities, more risk, more duties being forced onto taxpayers, you then need to invest more. Right? And also technology, not only about practitioners, it's also about the corporate tax departments of various commercial organizations. There's a changing role. And tax risk management has become one of the more important things for a tax department as well. Okay? And then you know the various benefits of technology, I won't go into that. And finally, for tax professionals, when I say professionals here, I cover both, those in corporations as well as those practitioners. We might see the challenges are as follows: legislative overload. There could be more and more things coming in the law. Until to date, we don't know what distinct capitalization is all about because the regulations haven't come out. We will know more when it comes out, but it makes you worried that you create a section and then you suddenly hold back on the details coming out, right? And the thing is being held back because of the MOF, but wasn't it the MOF which also authorized a change in the law? So it tells you a lot of things. Either tells you that they don't know what they're doing, or they're ahead of their time. And then they realize that we don't know enough. Revenue authorities are also a challenge for all of us because of their focus on other things, revenue, and forcing down on certain things, and imposing penalties. Professional rules and regulations continue to be for professional. There has to be the benchmark you have to measure yourself against. Staff knowledge is one of the things I've noticed in my various dealings with people, talks and all that. The knowledge that the staff have is quite limited. And this needs to be upgraded. Right? And how best to do it. Actually, attending seminars alone is not the only way, because seminars are not meant to teach you basics. It's giving you something, you interpret it differently. That's a very dangerous thing. But this is what's happening when I talk to certain staff. The staff knowledge is crucial. Will we have a licensing overload? Chances are there might be, because GST will have a license, income taxes have a license and all that. So those of you who are at the National Tax Conference, I presented something on that as well. And I made some proposals that we should be avoiding licensing overload. But let's see what happens. And tax risk management, without doubt, you cannot function the way we used to function 15 years ago we now have lots of concerns. So much so that a number of us might retire very early and might go into doing some other things. But we can share our knowledge with you. The younger ones who want to carry on practicing, we'll be happy to do that. So, thank you very much.